Maria had always been a hard worker. From the time she was a teenager, she took on every job she could find to support her family and pay for her education. She grew up in a small town where opportunities were limited, but she never let that stop her. Her determination and grit carried her through every challenge. She always believed that if she worked hard enough, she could create a life for herself that was meaningful and full of purpose. After finishing college, Maria landed a position at a well-known delivery company. She was proud of her achievement because it represented not just a job, but the start of her career path. She put in long hours and learned every aspect of her work. She became known for her reliability and her willingness to help her colleagues whenever they needed assistance. Her supervisors trusted her, and her peers respected her. But despite all her hard work, she never imagined that her life was about to take an unexpected turn. One day, Maria found out she was pregnant. She was overjoyed because she had always wanted to start a family. She shared the news with her partner and with her closest friends. Her heart was full of excitement and hope for the future. But when she informed her manager about her pregnancy, things began to change in ways she could not have anticipated. Her manager told her that she could not continue in her current role because the physical demands of the job were too high for someone who was expecting. He suggested that she take unpaid leave or consider stepping down temporarily. Maria was shocked because she had been performing her duties without any problem. She explained that she could still do her work safely with minor adjustments, but her requests were dismissed, and she was told that her options were limited. Maria felt a deep sense of injustice because she had always been committed to her work and had never given her employer any reason to doubt her abilities. She began to notice subtle changes in how she was treated. Her assignments were less challenging, and she was excluded from important meetings. She could feel the tension building, and she knew that this was not just about her pregnancy, but about the company's unwillingness to accommodate women who were expecting. She tried to address the issue internally by speaking with human resources, but she was met with vague responses and reassurances that nothing could be done. The emotional toll on Maria was immense. She went home every day feeling anxious and exhausted. She worried not only about her job, but also about the example she was setting for her unborn child. She felt frustrated that her dedication and competence were being overlooked simply because she was expecting a baby. She also felt isolated because many of her colleagues seemed afraid to speak up or support her openly. The discrimination she faced was subtle at times, but unmistakable in its impact on her career and self-esteem. Despite the challenges, Maria decided she would not remain silent. She began researching her rights under employment law and discovered that the law was supposed to protect employees from discrimination based on pregnancy. She read stories of women who had faced similar challenges and realized that while the law existed, it was often poorly enforced or interpreted in ways that still left women vulnerable. She felt a surge of determination to not only defend herself, but to create change that could help others in the future. Maria reached out to a local lawyer who specialized in employment discrimination cases. The lawyer listened carefully to her story and explained that she had a strong case based on the protections offered by the law. Maria felt a mix of relief and apprehension because pursuing legal action would be long and stressful, but she also felt a sense of empowerment because she knew she was standing up for herself and for the principle that no woman should be treated unfairly because of pregnancy. She began documenting every interaction at work, every email, and every decision that seemed discriminatory. She knew that evidence would be crucial if she wanted to make a convincing case. As the days turned into weeks, Maria prepared herself for the difficult path ahead. She balanced her pregnancy with the demands of preparing her case. She spent hours reading legal documents and discussing strategies with her lawyer. She also leaned on her partner and her closest friends for emotional support. Their encouragement gave her strength on days when the stress felt overwhelming. She learned to speak with confidence about her situation and to assert her rights without fear. Even small victories in the workplace became a source of motivation because they reminded her that change was possible. Maria's story began to attract attention from others who had faced similar struggles. Some of her colleagues reached out in private to thank her for taking a stand. Some women shared their own stories of being forced to leave their jobs or denied promotions while pregnant. This sense of solidarity strengthened Maria's resolve because she realized that her fight was bigger than herself. It was about changing the culture of workplaces to be more inclusive and supportive of women who were balancing career and family. By the end of her first trimester, Maria had filed a formal complaint against her employer. She knew that the legal process would be long and at times discouraging, but she felt ready to see it through. She understood that fighting for justice required courage, persistence, and an unwavering belief in the principle that all employees should be treated fairly, regardless of pregnancy. She began to imagine a future where women would no longer have to choose between their careers and starting a family. She dreamed of a world where her child would grow up knowing that justice and equality were not just ideals, but realities that people had fought hard to achieve. Maria's journey was only beginning, but she had already discovered the power of standing up for what is right. She had learned that fear and uncertainty could be transformed into determination and action. She had learned that one person's courage could inspire many, and that even in the face of powerful institutions, change was possible. She felt a quiet sense of pride knowing that she was taking steps to make the workplace more fair and equitable for generations of women to come. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, but Maria was ready. She had ignited a fire within herself that could not be extinguished. Her story was more than a job or a legal case. It was about dignity, equality, and the belief that every individual deserves respect, regardless of circumstances. She would continue to fight, not just for herself, but for every woman who had ever been told that her dreams were less important because she was expecting. The journey would be long, but Maria was determined to see it through to the end. Maria entered the courtroom for the first time with a mixture of anxiety and determination. She had never imagined that she would find herself here, standing before a judge, presenting her case against a powerful corporation. But she also knew that this was a necessary step, not only for her, but for every woman who had faced discrimination because of pregnancy. Her heart pounded as she recalled the months of preparation, the countless hours documenting every detail, and the support of friends and family who had encouraged her to stand strong. From the very beginning, it was clear that the battle would not be easy. Her employer had a team of lawyers experienced in defending large companies. They argued that the company had policies in place to accommodate employees, and that Maria's situation had been handled according to standard procedure. They claimed that her pregnancy did not qualify her for special treatment and tried to portray her as unreasonable or demanding. Maria felt a surge of anger listening to their arguments, but she knew that reacting emotionally could jeopardize her case. She focused on staying composed and relying on the facts and evidence she had gathered. Maria's lawyer guided her through each step, explaining the nuances of employment law and the protections offered by the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. She learned to anticipate the arguments the defense would make and how to respond effectively. She practiced giving testimony and answering questions with clarity and confidence. Each session in preparation strengthened her resolve and reminded her why this fight was so important. She was not just fighting for herself, she was fighting to set a precedent that would make workplaces fairer and more just. The courtroom became a place of both challenge and empowerment. Maria felt the weight of the case, but also a growing sense of purpose. She listened to other testimonies from women who had faced similar discrimination and realized that her story was part of a much larger issue. Maria saw the faces of women who had been denied promotions, reassigned to less desirable positions, or forced to leave their careers simply because they were expecting. She felt a deep connection to them and a renewed commitment to see the case through to its conclusion. Weeks turned into months as the trial progressed. Each hearing brought new evidence and testimonies. Some moments were disheartening as the defense attempted to diminish Maria's experience or question her motives. She faced intrusive questions about her personal life, her work habits, and her plans for the future. It was exhausting, both emotionally and physically, especially as her pregnancy advanced. But Maria remained steadfast. She reminded herself of why she had started this journey and the impact that a victory could have for women everywhere. During the trial, Maria also had to manage her own health and the well-being of her unborn child. She learned to set boundaries and prioritize self-care. She relied on her partner for emotional support and leaned on her closest friends who offered encouragement and practical assistance. She discovered a strength within herself that she had never known. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Every day she demonstrated resilience and determination that inspired those around her. Public attention began to grow as news of the case spread. Local media covered the trial, and people began sharing their own experiences with pregnancy discrimination. Maria received letters and messages from women across the country thanking her for taking a stand. Some shared stories of employers who had refused to accommodate their needs, while others expressed hope that her case could create meaningful change. The support she received reinforced her belief that her struggle was not in vain and that collective voices could bring about justice. Maria also encountered moments of doubt and frustration. The legal process was slow and sometimes seemed overwhelming. The defense would find loopholes to challenge her claims or present arguments that undermined her credibility. She felt the weight of the system pressing against her, but she refused to be discouraged. Instead, she focused on the progress she had made, the awareness she had raised, and the possibility of a brighter future. She reminded herself that every challenge she overcame brought her one step closer to the outcome she sought. Throughout the process, Maria continued to advocate for herself and for others. She participated in panels and discussions about workplace discrimination, sharing her story to educate employers and employees alike. She emphasized the importance of policies that support pregnant workers and the need for cultural change within organizations. She became a voice for those who had been silenced and a symbol of resilience and empowerment. Her experience transformed her into not just a plaintiff, but an advocate for social justice. As the trial drew closer to its conclusion, Maria reflected on the journey she had taken. She remembered the fear and uncertainty she had felt at the beginning, the isolation and frustration she had experienced, and the moments of despair when the outcome seemed uncertain. She also remembered the moments of courage and the support of those who believed in her. She realized that her fight was larger than a single case. It was a movement towards fairness and equality in the workplace. By the time the final hearings approached, Maria was physically and emotionally prepared to face the outcome. She had become intimately familiar with every aspect of her case, every piece of evidence, and every argument. The courtroom was no longer just a place of challenge, it had become a place of empowerment, a stage where she could stand not only for herself, but for all women who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Her journey had transformed her into someone who could confront injustice with courage and clarity. Maria knew that no matter the outcome, she had already achieved something significant. She had stood up against a powerful organization, she had raised awareness about a pervasive issue, and she had demonstrated the strength and resilience of women in the face of discrimination. Her story was becoming part of a larger conversation about equality in the workplace and the rights of pregnant employees. She understood that the fight for justice was ongoing and that each step forward created opportunities for future generations. The courtroom had become a place of both tension and revelation. Maria felt the weight of the case pressing on her every day, but she also knew that this moment was critical not only for her, but for all women who had faced discrimination because of pregnancy. She had spent months preparing, presenting evidence and testifying, but the real challenge was still ahead. The defense had been relentless, questioning her decisions, her capabilities, and her motives. They tried to frame her fight as unreasonable or unnecessary. Maria knew that the battle was about more than her individual circumstances. It was about justice, fairness, and the future of workplace equality. Maria's lawyer introduced new evidence that shed light on the inconsistencies in the company's policies. While the employer claimed to treat all employees fairly, the documentation revealed that accommodations were routinely provided to workers with temporary injuries or other medical conditions, but denied to pregnant employees. This evidence became a turning point. Maria felt a spark of hope as she realized that the facts were on her side. She understood that persistence and careful documentation had created an opportunity to challenge the system and demand change. The judge and jury listened intently as the evidence was presented. Maria could see the seriousness in their expressions and the attention to detail in their reactions. Every statement, every piece of documentation, every witness testimony mattered. She knew that her future and the precedent for countless others rested on the clarity and strength of her case. She drew strength from the knowledge that she had prepared meticulously and that her story represented the experiences of many women who had been silenced by fear or resignation. Outside the courtroom, Maria found moments of reflection and connection. She spoke with other women who had faced similar discrimination, sharing experiences, offering advice, and providing support. She realized that the legal battle was only one aspect of the journey. There was also a social and cultural challenge to overcome, the mindset that women could be treated differently simply because they were pregnant. She began to speak publicly about her experience, giving interviews, writing articles, and participating in forums. She wanted to ensure that the story of her struggle reached as many people as possible and inspired change beyond the courtroom. The emotional toll of the case continued to test Maria. Her pregnancy progressed, and she faced physical challenges that made long hours in the courtroom difficult. She learned to manage stress with mindfulness and meditation and relied on her partner and close friends for support. Their encouragement reminded her that she was not alone and that her fight had meaning far beyond her individual circumstances. She also began to notice the ripple effects of her courage. Colleagues and peers began to reconsider their own attitudes and behaviors, recognizing the importance of fairness and empathy in the workplace. As the trial reached its climax, Maria experienced moments of fear and doubt. The defense attempted new tactics to undermine her credibility, suggesting that she had exaggerated her experiences or that she was seeking attention. She remained calm, focusing on the facts and the evidence. She knew that emotional reactions could be used against her, so she responded with clarity, confidence, and integrity. Each response strengthened her case and demonstrated her unwavering commitment to justice. The courtroom became a stage where her courage and resilience were evident to all who witnessed it. One day, a witness from the company came forward admitting that pregnant employees had been treated differently in practice, despite the official policies claiming equality. This admission became a critical moment in the case. Maria felt a surge of determination knowing that the truth was finally being acknowledged. The recognition of unfair treatment validated her struggle and reinforced the importance of her fight. She realized that this moment could change the trajectory not only of her case, but the broader conversation about pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. The media began to cover this turning point, drawing attention to the inconsistencies and inequities in the company's treatment of pregnant employees. Maria's story became a symbol of resilience and empowerment for women across the nation. Letters and messages poured in from people who had experienced similar discrimination. Many expressed hope that Maria's courage could prevent others from suffering the same injustices. The growing public support reinforced her belief that the fight was not only worth it, but necessary to create a fairer and more just society. Maria also began to consider the personal changes that the journey had inspired. She realized that she had become more confident, more assertive, and more aware of her own strength and capabilities. She had learned to navigate complex systems, to advocate for herself and others, and to transform fear and uncertainty into action and resilience. These lessons extended beyond the courtroom, shaping her identity and her vision for the future. She understood that standing up for justice required courage and persistence, and that change often began with one person willing to speak out. During this time, Maria's relationship with her partner deepened as they faced the challenges together. She realized that shared support and understanding were crucial in navigating the stress of the trial and the physical demands of pregnancy. Their partnership became a source of strength and comfort, reminding her that love and solidarity could provide the foundation for resilience. Maria also developed a network of friends and allies who offered guidance, support, and encouragement.
They became a community united by the desire to see justice achieved and fairness restored. As the trial approached its final arguments, Maria felt a combination of exhaustion, anticipation, and hope. She understood that the evidence had shifted the momentum in her favor, but she also knew that the outcome was not guaranteed. She prepared carefully for her final statements, organizing her thoughts and focusing on the principles of fairness, equality, and respect that had motivated her from the very beginning. She practiced speaking with conviction and clarity, ensuring that her voice conveyed not only her personal experience, but the broader implications of the case. The day of the closing arguments arrived. Maria entered the courtroom with a sense of purpose. She presented her final statements, emphasizing the injustice of discrimination based on pregnancy, the importance of equitable treatment for all employees, and the potential impact of the case on future workplace practices. She spoke with sincerity and passion, her words resonating with the judge, the jury, and those observing the proceedings. She highlighted the evidence of inconsistent treatment of pregnant employees and the need for systemic change. She urged a decision that would affirm the rights of women and set a precedent for fairness. As the proceedings concluded, Maria felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. She had given everything to the case. She had presented the evidence, she had shared her story, and she had stood unwavering in the face of opposition. She understood that the decision now rested with the legal system, but she also knew that regardless of the outcome, she had already made a difference. Her courage had inspired others, brought attention to an important issue, and strengthened the movement for workplace equality. Maria left the courtroom that day with a sense of accomplishment and renewed determination. She reflected on the journey from the moment she discovered her pregnancy to the trials and challenges she had faced. She realized that her fight was about more than personal justice. It was about creating a world where women could pursue both career and family without fear of discrimination or unfair treatment. She embraced the understanding that change required persistence, courage, and the willingness to confront injustice directly. The turning point in Maria's journey marked a new chapter, one where hope, possibility, and determination intersected. She had seen the truth emerge, she had witnessed the impact of her courage, and she had learned that standing up for justice could inspire and empower others. Her story was becoming a testament to resilience and advocacy, a narrative that would influence workplace policies and social perceptions for years to come. She had become not only a fighter for her rights, but a beacon of hope for those who would follow in her footsteps. Maria knew that the coming days would bring the final decision, but she also recognized that the journey itself had already transformed her life. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more aware of the power of persistence. She understood that justice was not merely a destination, but a process that required courage, integrity, and unwavering commitment. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that her actions had already made a lasting impact.
The days following the final arguments were filled with tension and anticipation. Maria woke each morning with a mixture of hope and anxiety. She thought about the countless hours she had spent preparing for this moment, the sleepless nights, the moments of doubt, the fear and uncertainty. And yet she also felt a quiet sense of pride. She had stood up for herself and for every woman who had been denied fairness because of pregnancy. She knew that regardless of the outcome, her actions had already begun to change the conversation. Then, one morning, Maria received a call from her lawyer. The voice on the other end was calm, but carried a note of excitement. They informed her that preliminary indications from the judge suggested that the case was leaning in her favor. Maria felt a surge of relief mixed with cautious optimism. She knew that nothing was final until the official ruling, but these first signs of victory filled her with renewed energy and determination. She thought about the women who had reached out to her, the stories they had shared, and the hope that her fight could create a better future. Maria returned to the courtroom as the final ruling was scheduled. She walked with a sense of purpose, her heart pounding with anticipation. She thought back to the beginning of her journey, to the moment she had discovered her pregnancy and how it had led her down this path of challenge and growth. She remembered the fear, the doubt, and the uncertainty, but she also recalled the courage, the perseverance, and the resilience that had carried her forward. Every step she had taken had prepared her for this moment. The courtroom was filled with tension as the judge began to speak. The words that followed were ones Maria had dreamed of for months. The judge ruled in her favor, affirming that she had been discriminated against because of her pregnancy. This decision acknowledged that the company had failed to provide accommodations that were offered to other employees with similar work limitations. This ruling was not just a personal victory, it was a landmark decision that would influence how employers treated pregnant employees for years to come. Maria felt a rush of emotions, relief, joy, validation, and empowerment all at once. She looked around the courtroom, seeing the expressions of those who had supported her, the lawyers, the witnesses, and even colleagues who had quietly watched her struggle. She realized that her fight had created a ripple effect. Her courage had not only secured justice for herself, but had also sent a message to organizations everywhere that discrimination based on pregnancy was unacceptable and that fairness and equality were non-negotiable. Following the ruling, Maria began to work closely with human resources and management to implement changes that would prevent future discrimination. She participated in workshops and training sessions, helping employers understand the importance of accommodating pregnant employees. She shared practical strategies and examples from her own experience, illustrating how small adjustments could make a significant difference. She emphasized the importance of empathy, respect, and recognition of the unique challenges faced by employees balancing work and family. Maria's story began to inspire other women to come forward and advocate for their rights. Some reached out, seeking guidance on navigating workplace challenges. Others shared stories of unfair treatment, hoping that her experience could guide them. She became a mentor and a source of encouragement, showing that it was possible to stand up for oneself and create meaningful change. Her journey became a blueprint for resilience and advocacy, demonstrating the power of persistence and the importance of not remaining silent. As the months passed, Maria saw tangible changes taking shape within her company. Policies were revised to ensure that pregnant employees received accommodations and support comparable to their peers with other work limitations. The culture of the workplace began to shift as awareness grew about the importance of fairness, inclusion, and respect. Managers and colleagues began to recognize the value of creating environments where everyone could thrive, regardless of personal circumstances. The changes were gradual but significant, and Maria took pride in knowing that her efforts had contributed to a better workplace for everyone. At the same time, Maria continued to reflect on her personal growth throughout the journey. She realized that she had become more confident, resilient, and assertive. She had learned to navigate complex challenges, advocate for herself and others, and transform fear and uncertainty into action and empowerment. These lessons extended beyond her professional life, shaping her identity and her vision for the future. She understood that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in the face of it, and that one person's determination could create lasting change. Maria also focused on her family, preparing for the arrival of her child and nurturing her relationships. Her partner remained a steadfast source of support and love, sharing the challenges and triumphs of the journey. She found joy in the simple moments, the anticipation of becoming a parent, the quiet evenings spent reflecting on the progress she had made, and the conversations with friends and colleagues about the importance of equality and justice. The balance between personal fulfillment and professional advocacy became a guiding principle in her life.
The impact of Maria's case extended beyond her company and workplace. Her story began to be cited in discussions about employment law and workplace equality. She participated in seminars, conferences, and media interviews, highlighting the challenges faced by pregnant employees and the importance of legislative protections. She became a voice for systemic change, influencing policy discussions and inspiring others to advocate for fairness and inclusion. Her journey demonstrated that legal victories could translate into cultural transformation when combined with advocacy and education. As part 4 of Maria's journey came to a close, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. The first signs of victory were more than just a legal ruling. They represented the possibility of a fairer, more inclusive future for women in the workplace. She understood that change required persistence, courage, and the willingness to confront injustice directly, and that her actions had already created a foundation for lasting impact. She felt motivated to continue her advocacy and to ensure that the principles of fairness and equality were embedded into workplace practices for generations to come.
Following the landmark ruling, Maria realized that her fight was no longer just about her own workplace. It had become a symbol of the struggle for justice and equality for women everywhere. She felt a sense of responsibility to ensure that the lessons learned from her case would extend beyond her company. She began speaking at conferences and seminars, sharing her experience and providing guidance on how organizations could create inclusive policies for pregnant employees. She emphasized that real change required not only legal protections, but also cultural transformation. Maria's story attracted attention from national media outlets. Her case was discussed on television, radio, and online platforms, sparking conversations about workplace discrimination, pregnancy rights, and gender equality. Employers began to take notice, realizing that public awareness could influence their reputation and internal culture. Maria was invited to advise companies on creating supportive work environments, offering practical recommendations for policies that provided fair accommodations without compromising productivity. Her guidance focused on empathy, respect, and recognition of the unique challenges faced by pregnant employees. At the same time, Maria remained committed to mentoring women who had faced similar discrimination. She received letters and emails from individuals seeking advice on navigating workplace challenges. She offered guidance on documenting experiences, understanding legal rights, and advocating for accommodations. Her mentorship empowered others to stand up for themselves, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond her immediate environment. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that her experience was helping others find courage and resilience in the face of injustice. Maria also worked with advocacy groups and legal organizations to promote stronger enforcement of existing laws protecting pregnant employees. She collaborated on campaigns to raise awareness about discrimination and the importance of equitable treatment. She helped organize workshops and training sessions for employers, human resources professionals, and employees, highlighting the practical steps that could be taken to prevent discrimination. She stressed that awareness, education, and accountability were critical in creating workplaces where everyone could thrive, regardless of personal circumstances. Her efforts began to influence policy discussions at a higher level. Lawmakers and policymakers sought her insight on how to strengthen protections for pregnant employees and ensure compliance with existing regulations. Maria shared her experience, emphasizing the need for clear guidelines, equitable treatment, and mechanisms for addressing complaints. She advocated for policies that balanced the needs of employees and employers, creating solutions that were fair, practical, and sustainable. Her work contributed to shaping a broader legal framework that would protect future generations of workers. As her influence expanded, Maria continued to balance her personal life with her advocacy. She prepared for the arrival of her child, managing the challenges of late-stage pregnancy while remaining engaged in her work.
She found strength and support in her partner and close friends who shared in the triumphs and difficulties of the journey. She learned to prioritize her well-being while remaining committed to her mission, understanding that sustainable advocacy required self-care, resilience, and a clear sense of purpose. Maria's story inspired research and discussion within the business community about the benefits of inclusive policies. She demonstrated that supporting pregnant employees did not reduce productivity or efficiency. Instead, it fostered loyalty, engagement, and a positive organizational culture. Companies began to recognize that fairness and accommodation were not just legal obligations, but strategic advantages, contributing to employee satisfaction, retention, and overall success. Maria's experience became a case study, illustrating the tangible benefits of equitable treatment in the workplace. The recognition of her efforts and the tangible changes she influenced strengthened her sense of purpose. Her story was being cited in academic articles, legal reviews, and professional development programs, illustrating the impact of individual courage on systemic change. She was invited to contribute to panels and conferences focused on gender equality, workplace rights, and social justice. Her advocacy had grown from a personal fight into a platform for widespread education and empowerment, demonstrating that perseverance and integrity could reshape societal norms and expectations. As the months passed, Maria saw real progress in the companies and communities she worked with. Policies were revised, training programs implemented, and support systems established to ensure that pregnant employees received fair treatment. She witnessed a cultural shift in attitudes as colleagues, managers, and leaders embraced the principles of fairness, inclusion, and respect. Her efforts were creating a foundation for lasting change, a legacy that would continue to influence workplaces long after the immediate legal case had concluded. Maria also reflected on her personal growth throughout this journey. She realized that she had become more confident, assertive, and resilient. She had learned to navigate complex challenges, advocate for herself and others, and transform fear and uncertainty into purposeful action. Her experiences shaped her identity and deepened her understanding of justice, courage, and empathy. She recognized that the fight for equality was ongoing and required continual engagement, commitment, and leadership. The birth of Maria's child added a new dimension to her journey. She embraced the joys and responsibilities of parenthood while continuing her advocacy work. She found inspiration in the idea that her efforts were creating a better world for her child and for generations to come. She shared stories of resilience, empowerment, and courage, demonstrating to her child the importance of standing up for justice and advocating for what is right. She balanced nurturing her family with advancing social change, understanding that both were integral parts of her purpose and mission. Maria's story continued to resonate with individuals, organizations, and policymakers. She became a symbol of courage, resilience, and the transformative power of advocacy. Her journey illustrated that standing up for oneself could lead to systemic change that benefited countless others. She demonstrated that legal victories combined with persistent education, advocacy, and mentorship could reshape society and foster cultural norms, fostering environments where fairness, equality, and respect were prioritized. As Part 5 of Maria's journey came to a close, Maria recognized that her impact had expanded far beyond the courtroom. She had transformed her personal struggle into a national conversation about fairness, equality, and inclusion. She had influenced policy changes, inspired countless women to advocate for themselves, and demonstrated that courage, integrity, and persistence could create tangible results. Her journey became a model of empowerment, advocacy, and social change, illustrating the profound effects that one individual could have on the lives of many. Maria felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that her fight had created meaningful and lasting impact. She understood that while challenges remained and the work of advocacy was ongoing, her efforts had laid a foundation for a fairer, more just society. She continued to embrace her mission with passion, commitment, and determination, ready to face new challenges and continue her work, ensuring that the principles of equality, fairness, and respect were upheld in every workplace and community she touched.
Maria realized that while her victory had created change within her company, it was only the beginning of a broader fight for systemic reform. She understood that policies alone could not protect women unless the law was strengthened and consistently enforced. She began working closely with legal experts, advocacy groups, and policymakers to analyze existing legislation and identify gaps that left pregnant employees vulnerable. Her goal was clear. She wanted to ensure that no woman would ever face discrimination simply for expecting a child. The first step was research. Maria collaborated with attorneys and academics to document cases of pregnancy discrimination across the country. She gathered data showing patterns of unfair treatment, denied accommodations, and lost opportunities for advancement. Her research highlighted the limitations of existing laws and demonstrated the need for amendments and clearer guidelines. She presented her findings at conferences and to lawmakers, emphasizing the human and economic impact of discrimination and the necessity for comprehensive legal protections. Maria's growing public profile opened doors to policy discussions at the national level. She was invited to testify before legislative committees, sharing her personal experience and the insights gained from her advocacy work. She explained how inconsistencies in policy enforcement created uncertainty and fear for pregnant employees, and stressed the importance of creating laws that were both protective and practical. She proposed measures including mandatory accommodation policies, clear reporting mechanisms, and penalties for noncompliance, demonstrating that legal reform was achievable and necessary. The process of shaping legal reform was long and complex. Maria navigated meetings with lawmakers, bureaucrats, and legal advisors, presenting evidence and recommendations with clarity and determination. She drew on her experience in the courtroom and the lessons learned from her own legal battle to articulate the human consequences of inadequate protections. Her advocacy emphasized that equality was not merely a principle, but a right that required legal recognition and enforcement. She remained patient, persistent, and focused, understanding that meaningful change often required sustained effort. At the same time, Maria continued her work on the ground. She conducted workshops for employers and employees, teaching about legal rights, responsibilities, and best practices for accommodating pregnant workers. She emphasized proactive communication, empathy, and planning to prevent discrimination. She shared practical examples and case studies, illustrating how fair treatment benefited both employees and organizations. She wanted to ensure that legal reform was complemented by cultural change, fostering workplaces where respect, fairness, and inclusion were the norm. The momentum for change grew as other women and organizations joined Maria's efforts. Advocacy groups began campaigns highlighting gaps in the law and calling for stronger enforcement measures. Media coverage amplified the message, creating public pressure for reform. Maria's leadership and credibility inspired a movement, demonstrating that one person's courage could catalyze systemic transformation. She became a bridge between the lived experiences of employees and the policymakers shaping the laws that governed their work. As legislative efforts progressed, Maria participated in drafting proposed amendments, providing guidance and expertise to ensure that the reforms addressed practical challenges and protected the rights of pregnant employees comprehensively. She collaborated with legal experts to create language that was clear, enforceable, and adaptable to various workplaces. She emphasized that the law should not only punish discrimination, but also provide resources, support, and education to foster compliance and understanding. Throughout this time, Maria balanced her advocacy with personal responsibilities. She continued to nurture her child and family while maintaining an active role in shaping policy and mentoring others. Her experience reinforced the importance of work-life balance and modeling resilience. She demonstrated that it was possible to integrate professional advocacy with personal fulfillment, and that the pursuit of justice could coexist with the responsibilities and joys of family life. The proposed legal reforms began to gain traction in legislative bodies. Lawmakers cited Maria's case as a precedent, highlighting the practical and moral necessity of strengthening protections for pregnant employees. Committees reviewed the proposals extensively and invited stakeholders to provide input. Maria participated actively, ensuring that the voices of those affected by discrimination were central to the discussion. She stressed the importance of clarity, accountability, and support in every provision, ensuring that the law would be effective and equitable. As the legal reform process advanced, Maria saw tangible signs of impact. Her advocacy had transformed discussions about workplace equality and pregnancy rights. She received messages from women across the nation, expressing hope and gratitude, sharing how her work had inspired them to assert their rights and advocate for fairness in their own workplaces. The ripple effect of her actions became evident, demonstrating the power of perseverance, courage, and principled advocacy. Maria also recognized that shaping legal reform required continuous engagement. She maintained dialogue with lawmakers, monitored legislative progress, and provided feedback to ensure that the proposed laws reflected the realities faced by employees and employers. She understood that legal language alone could not guarantee change, and that ongoing advocacy, education, and enforcement were essential to translate reform into meaningful protection. By the end of this phase of her journey, Maria had achieved a remarkable transformation of the landscape for pregnant employees. She had moved from a single individual facing discrimination to a national advocate, influencing legislation, policy, and cultural norms. Her work demonstrated the profound impact that one person's courage and determination could have in shaping society and ensuring justice for countless others. She had turned her personal struggle into systemic change, creating a legacy of empowerment and equality for generations of women. Maria reflected on her journey with a sense of accomplishment and humility. She had faced fear, adversity, and resistance, but had emerged stronger, wiser, and more committed to justice. Her experience had taught her the importance of perseverance, advocacy, and the belief that change was possible even in the face of entrenched systems. She understood that her actions had created opportunities for others to thrive and had strengthened the foundation for a fairer, more equitable society. As her journey came to a close, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and resolve. She knew that while the work of legal reform was ongoing, her contributions had created a significant and lasting impact. She had transformed her personal experience of discrimination into a force for systemic change, influencing laws, policies, and cultural attitudes. Her story was now not only about personal victory, but about creating a legacy of justice, equality, and empowerment for generations of women. The momentum from Maria's advocacy had grown to a level she had never imagined. Her efforts to shape legal reform and raise awareness about pregnancy discrimination were now resonating across the nation. She was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and professional organizations, highlighting the importance of workplace equality and the real human impact of discrimination. Her story became a touchstone for discussions about fairness, inclusion, and the responsibilities of employers to provide equitable treatment. Maria began to see the tangible results of her work as legislative reforms were passed and implemented. She worked closely with regulatory agencies, providing guidance on the enforcement of new policies. She assisted in developing training programs for managers and human resources professionals, ensuring that workplaces understood their obligations and were equipped to support pregnant employees effectively. She emphasized practical steps, including flexible work arrangements, reasonable accommodations, and open communication as essential components of an inclusive work environment. The recognition of Maria's contributions extended beyond policy circles. She received awards from advocacy organizations and professional associations, celebrating her courage, determination, and impact. Her story was featured in magazines, online platforms, and national media outlets, inspiring countless women and men to advocate for fairness and equality in their own workplaces. The attention was humbling, but it reinforced her belief that visibility and storytelling were powerful tools for change.
As her work gained national recognition, Maria continued to mentor women facing discrimination. She provided guidance on navigating workplace challenges, understanding their legal rights, and advocating for themselves with confidence. She emphasized the importance of documenting experiences, communicating clearly, and seeking support. She encouraged women to transform fear and frustration into action and empowerment, creating a network of advocates who could support each other and amplify their voices for broader change. Maria's influence also reached corporate leaders who began to reconsider and revise their policies. She consulted with companies to ensure that practices aligned with the new legal standards, promoting accommodations for pregnant employees, and fostering inclusive cultures. She demonstrated that creating supportive workplaces not only fulfilled legal obligations, but also enhanced employee engagement, satisfaction, and retention. Her approach highlighted that fairness and productivity were mutually reinforcing values. The impact of her work was evident in the stories she continued to hear from women across the country. Many shared how new policies allowed them to continue their careers while managing pregnancies without fear of discrimination. Some described promotions and opportunities they had previously been denied, now becoming attainable. Maria recognized that these small victories were part of a larger movement, demonstrating the ripple effect of advocacy and systemic change. Amid the recognition and the expanding influence, Maria remained focused on the mission rather than personal accolades. She understood that sustaining change required ongoing effort, vigilance, and education. She continued to monitor the implementation of policies, provide feedback to organizations, and engage with lawmakers to address unforeseen challenges. Her commitment to justice, equality, and empowerment remained unwavering, demonstrating that true advocacy extended beyond initial victories to continuous engagement and refinement. Maria also balanced her professional and personal life, understanding that her own well-being and family responsibilities were integral to sustaining her efforts. She nurtured her child and maintained strong connections with her partner, friends, and mentors, creating a support system that reinforced her resilience. She modeled for others that it was possible to combine personal fulfillment with systemic advocacy, creating a holistic approach to life and work that emphasized balance, purpose, and impact. The cultural shift within organizations and society was becoming more apparent. Maria saw increased awareness among employers about the importance of accommodating pregnant employees. She observed changes in attitudes as leaders and colleagues recognized the value of inclusivity, fairness, and respect. Maria's advocacy had created not only legal and policy change, but also a shift in mindset, highlighting the power of personal courage to inspire collective transformation. As her work gained national recognition, Maria began to collaborate with international organizations, sharing her experience and best practices globally. She contributed to research initiatives and policy discussions in other countries, emphasizing the universal importance of workplace equality and protections for pregnant employees. She became a voice in global conversations about gender equality, labor rights, and human dignity, demonstrating that the lessons learned from one journey could resonate across borders and inspire worldwide change. Through it all, Maria reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. The fear and uncertainty of being fired for pregnancy, the long hours documenting evidence and preparing for legal battles, and the emotional challenges of advocacy had transformed her into a leader and agent of change. She understood that the personal struggle had become a catalyst for systemic reform, creating a legacy that would continue to empower others long after the initial victory. As Maria's journey came to a close, she recognized the breadth of impact she had achieved. From a personal fight against discrimination to influencing national policy and cultural change, she had turned adversity into opportunity. Her advocacy had created tangible legal protections, inspired countless individuals, and reshaped attitudes within organizations. Her story was becoming a permanent testament to the power of courage, determination, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. Maria felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her efforts were creating a lasting legacy. She continued to engage with policymakers, organizations, and individuals, ensuring that the principles of fairness, inclusion, and equality remained central to workplace practices. Her journey demonstrated that systemic change was possible when combined with persistent advocacy, leadership, and the willingness to transform personal experience into a force for collective good. She was ready to face the final chapter of her journey, confident that her actions had created enduring impact.
Maria stood in her office, overlooking the city, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the fear and uncertainty she had felt when she first discovered her pregnancy and the shock of being told her career might end because of circumstances beyond her control. She remembered the long nights documenting every detail, the meetings with lawyers, the testimonies, and the countless moments of doubt and worry. She remembered the tears, the frustration, the moments when the battle seemed insurmountable. Yet she also remembered the courage and determination that had carried her forward every step of the way. Her victory in the courtroom had been more than a personal triumph. It had become a turning point in the fight for equality for pregnant employees across the nation. The ruling had forced companies to reconsider policies and ensure fair treatment for all workers. Maria had gone further, transforming her personal struggle into a platform for systemic change, influencing legal reform, national discussions, and corporate culture. Her story was now cited in workplaces, schools, conferences, and policy debates, illustrating the power of perseverance and the impact of one individual's courage. Even as her influence grew, Maria remained grounded. She continued to mentor women who faced workplace challenges, providing guidance on navigating discrimination, asserting their rights, and advocating for fair treatment. She listened to their stories, offering advice, encouragement, and support. She reminded them that they were not alone and that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to take action despite it. She became a living example of resilience, demonstrating that one person's determination could create a ripple effect, empowering countless others. Maria also continued to work with organizations implementing the reforms that had emerged from her advocacy. She trained managers, human resources professionals, and employees, emphasizing the importance of empathy, inclusion, and equitable treatment. She helped develop practical strategies for accommodating pregnant employees, ensuring that work environments were supportive, respectful, and productive. She highlighted how fair treatment benefited both employees and organizations, fostering loyalty, engagement, and a positive workplace culture. The impact of Maria's work extended beyond the corporate world. She participated in public policy discussions, advising lawmakers on strengthening protections for pregnant employees and creating mechanisms for accountability and support. She collaborated with advocacy groups to raise awareness about discrimination and to promote equality. She shared her story globally, demonstrating that the principles of fairness and justice were universal and that systemic change could be achieved when courage and advocacy intersected. Through it all, Maria reflected on the personal growth that had accompanied her journey. She had become more confident, resilient, and assertive. She had learned to navigate complex challenges, advocate for herself and others, and transform fear and adversity into purposeful action. She had developed a deep sense of empathy for those facing discrimination and a commitment to ensuring that the rights and dignity of all individuals were protected. Her experience had shaped her identity, instilling values that would guide her for the rest of her life. Maria also cherished her personal milestones that occurred alongside her advocacy. She celebrated the birth and growth of her child, experiencing the joys and challenges of parenthood while continuing her mission. She found inspiration in knowing that her efforts were creating a world where her child and future generations would have the right to pursue career and family without fear of discrimination. She modeled resilience, courage, and integrity, showing that it was possible to combine personal fulfillment with professional advocacy. The cultural shift that Maria helped inspire became evident in the stories she continued to hear.
Women across the nation shared experiences of being accommodated during pregnancy, promoted fairly, and treated with respect and dignity. Their voices reinforced the importance of her work and demonstrated the tangible effects of advocacy and systemic change. Maria understood that these individual victories collectively represented a transformation in societal attitudes toward pregnant employees and gender equality in the workplace. Maria's influence continued to grow internationally. She participated in global forums, sharing best practices for workplace equality and protections for pregnant employees. Her experience served as a guide and inspiration for organizations seeking to create inclusive environments and governments looking to strengthen legal protections. She demonstrated that personal courage could inspire societal change across borders and that the principles of justice, fairness, and equality transcended cultural and geographic boundaries. As Maria reflected on the totality of her journey, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment and purpose. She had transformed personal injustice into systemic change. She had inspired a movement. She had mentored others and influenced legal reform and corporate policy. Her efforts had created opportunities for countless women to pursue their careers with confidence and dignity. Her story had become a beacon of hope, demonstrating that perseverance, courage, and unwavering commitment to justice could reshape society and leave a lasting legacy across workplaces, communities, and generations. Maria took a deep breath and smiled, knowing that her fight had created a brighter future. She had turned adversity into opportunity, injustice into reform, and personal struggle into systemic change. Her story would continue to inspire courage, advocacy, and hope, reminding all who heard it that standing up for justice could change lives, protect rights, and transform society. She had become more than a victor. She had become a symbol of the enduring power of perseverance, integrity, and unwavering commitment to what is right.